And we're off. Someone has asked about the final exam. Okay, it's really quiet. Final exam. Okay, so preface this. So how many points is your project 5 worth? Like 15 or 16 or something like that? Okay. How many points is the final exam worth? 12. Oh, you guys know all this stuff. Good. I don't need to look at the syllabus anymore. So over the next week, where should you invest your time? Project 5, right. This is on purpose. So there are 2 portions to the final exam. The first is a written part. It's worth 6 points, so it's basically 2 of your quizzes. And so it's written. Let's see here. What do I need to tell you about it? Any of the lecture material that is basically any lecture material in the first 6 weeks is not the dependency injection. Anything, so I guess it's really just the first 5 weeks is fair game. So basically, if it was something that you could have used for your projects, it might be on the final exam. And so that means that dependency injection, while I think it's super cool and everything, not going to be on there. The advanced GWT, again, super cool, kind of valuable, not going to be on there. But everything else is. Yeah, it's short answer and yeah, so it's short answer questions and let's see, those are the topics. Okay, it's open book, open notes, but no computers. I don't know how you take a final exam with a computer in front of you and not cheat. I mean, come on, right? It's like on the Facebook or whatever. So okay, I don't know how to let you guys use computers and the internet, and not feel like it's really your work and not somebody else's. This is why it's only like 6 points too. It's almost a formality at this point. So anyway, so if that means that you kill some trees, I'm sorry if you feel bad about that. Having printouts of the slides may help. But really, the best way for you to prepare for the final exam is to have done well on the projects and be familiar with the APIs, be familiar with the concepts. And so then that's that. The second part of the final exam is an oral part, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's next week. And it's here during class during the time. So please be here. I'm really looking forward to like seeing all the people who we haven't seen in like 6 weeks. Because seriously, like there are like 20 Indian dudes in this class, right? And like nobody, it's like they were all sitting over there. I remember, right? And like they haven't shown up. So it'll be good to see everybody again, right? Hi, I'm sure you're listening at home. You're probably not even listening. This part you will because it'll say it's like, oh, talk about the final exam. Anyway, so yeah, it happens every year, and I'm cool with it, but I reserve the right to make fun of it. Okay, so that's the final. So show up. It'll be a good time. Plus, I'll have some final words, and we'll all hold hands and play It's So Hard to Say Goodbye by Yesterday by Boys to Men. It'll be fun. No, it won't. Okay, so okay, so meanwhile, back to GWT. Let's talk about testing next. So, unit and integration testing. So in all of our projects, we've had unit tests, right? Unit tests are test like one class at a time, one object at a time. And integration tests test, well, either like multiple objects, like for your projects 1, 2, and 3, where it was the command line utility, or in project 4, where it was like it was testing your server while your server was running, and then you're interacting with it that way. We have very similar tests for GWT, I thought. Oh, you know what? I guess I don't have any unit tests. Oh, I should have a unit test. Sorry about that. So let's start with a unit test. So now, one of the nice things about GWT is that the vast majority of your code is just plain old Java code. And so then you can test it just like you would any other Java code. So you can have, let's see here, new package. So you can have unit tests for your server-side code. And let's add a new class there. So let's have our airline service impl test. Here again, I don't know if this is going to be useful at all. And so let's see here. What would be, let's look at our airline service impl. I'm going to let's see here. It's probably over. Hello, there you go. Airline service impl, and I'm going to open this. I'm going to split vertically. Okay, so here's a test. I'm going to get rid of this thing over here so we can see both of them. Okay, test public void get airline with name returns airline with name. Yeah, kind of silly. So we're going to say airline service impl service new airline. I don't even know if this is going to work or not. Can I even create that? Oops. Oh, that's messed up.
Did all of these
Yep.
all of these projects ship with that test directory?
I think so, but it might be empty. Do you not see it?
I don't have a test directory.
Oh, I wonder why. Okay. Yeah, actually, I'm just kinda, okay. I'm sorry about that. I probably should have some unit tests in the template. I wonder why I have one for me. So what you basically need to do is create a test. So you don't have the test directory. So at the top level, you just have source. You have source, and then you have IT for integration tests and main. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I guess you create test Java. Okay, so you can create yourself, and then all of the subdirectories that you need to get down to your server. So that didn't compile. So let's run it again. It ran. Yay. Okay, so I can create one of those guys. So I can create my airline service. And I can say the following. I can say airline, well, I need airline name actually. Name equals my airline. And then I can say I can say service.getAirline name. And then I'm going to put this into a variable. I'm going to call it airline. And which would fit on the screen. And I'm going to say assert that. I hope I have. Static import method, hamcrest. Oh, I must have that, yeah. Airline.get name equal to name. Now I'm going to run it. Yay, and it works. So you can test your airline service this way. Okay, that's pretty neat. So you can test stuff on the server side. Sorry, the server side, like this. Okay, that's kind of cool. I'm just going to check these guys in real quick. And let's see here. Add unit test for server side code. Okay, let's add a test for, how do I do this? Let's see here. New package, oops. And no, I don't want to add it underneath that drat. How do I do that? I think, no, I don't like that. Project, oh, there used to be a way to not expand directories anymore. What is that? Collapse all, scroll from source. What else do I have? Project files, GWT, airline GWT, source, test Java, EU. Yeah, but can I? I do it from the command line. Sorry. Make dir source test Java client. Clint client, and I'm going to project. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to say synchronize, and now I have a client. Yay, good. Okay, so new class, pretty printer test. Okay, let's get the pretty printer over here. Pretty printer. Oh, bother. Move to opposite group. Okay, so there's pretty printer. So what do I want to do? Okay, well let's just, oops, where's that pretty printer test? So test airline name included in pretty print output. Sure. So I'm going to create a pretty printer. Pretty equals new pretty printer. Actually, I'm going to create an airline first, I suppose. Airline equals new airline. And I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to make a variable for name. I'm going to call it my airline. New pretty printer. I'm going to say pretty.dump of the airline. And then that throws some exception or whatever. Great, I'll just add to the test because who cares? And then I'm going to say output equals pretty.get pretty text. And then I'm going to say assert that output contains string, I think that's right. Yes, contains string airline name. Should have done this all TDD, but anyway, good. That works. Okay, so now I can write client side. I can write tests for my client side code. Also, that's pretty cool. Oh, but let's try something else. Oh. So this, I'm pretty sure, airline. Oh, I didn't add a flight. Okay, so let's try something else. Okay, so flight number is included in pretty printer output. Okay, so we're going to have something kind of similar here. And I got to throw the exception. That's neat. Okay, so that's airline. So I really don't care about the name of the airline. I'll just inline that. I need it. Now I need a flight. Flight equals new flight. Okay, and I'm going to airline to add flight. And I'm going to assert that contains string flight.get number, and this has to be a string, so string.value of. Okay. So now let's see what happens when I run this. Aha! It failed. Now why did this fail? Exception initializer. It looks like it blew up when it called date format. It says GWT Create is only usable in client code. Huh, what does this mean? So what's wrong, GWT? How come I can't use date time format in my unit test? Right. So, well, actually, it's not converting to JavaScript. Is you convert JavaScript, you mean? It's actually not doing that, and that's the problem. So date time format is a class that really only exists in JavaScript. It's only meant for the client side. And so, oops, what happened over there? Okay, that was weird. So I glossed over this very briefly. There is this magical method called GWT Create, and it's actually magic. It's like how GWT works. I think I called it. I call it in the GWT.create. Right. You use it in things like when you create your service. And so this is a method that the JavaScript version of it handles like all of the magic to take like an airline service class and turn it into an airline service async and stuff like that, right? It's kind of all magical, and it's used internally in stuff like the datetime format. What it looks like it's doing, if we look at the stack trace some more, so let's see here. It's calling get default date time format info, and somewhere on the stack it's getting an unsupported operation exception when it's trying to create, client locale info. It's trying to get the locale info, which it would get from the browser. It's like there's no browser here. So this is something that you need to be aware of when you are writing unit tests for GWT. So it's the same way that there's some Java APIs that you can't use on the client side because they can't be converted to JavaScript. There are some GWT APIs that you can't use on, well, the server side. It's in a plain old Java program, Java VM, JVM, on the server side because they're not fully supported. So what do? Someone was telling me that there might be like a special date format constructor that you can use. To get around this, date time format info. In the shared method, okay. So shared. So maybe you can get around it by like using this thing. How do you create one of these guys? Oh, like maybe with an adapter or something. Well, I don't know. But I mean, the lesson here is that you have to be aware of of mixing client code with plain old Java code, because if it's using client side only code like datetime formatter, you're just not going to get it to work. So I mean, like what I could do, I suppose, is is the following.
Can you mock out a browser?
Yeah, can you mock out a browser? Yes, we'll see that in a minute. But for the Java, for the Java stuff, you could do something like the following. Well, yeah, sure. What the heck? Okay, so we are going to do the following. Okay, so I mean, look at this code. There's so much. There's only a tiny bit of code. These 2 lines are the only thing that require the GWT. Require GWT stuff. All this other logic is just plain old Java code that works exactly the same, whether it's compiled in the client on JavaScript or it's on the server. And I'd really like to be able to test it. Okay, how can I test it? Well, what if I abstracted out the code that actually does this thing? I've got it in a method, but what if I was able to sort of configure, hey, in when you're running it in GWT, use the GWT version. If you're running it just in plain old Java, use something else. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a design pattern called the adapter pattern, and I'm going to do the following. I'm going to create a static interface. Well, all interfaces are static. So I'm going to create an inner interface. I'm going to call it a date formatter. And it's going to have one method. It's going to have a public string format, and it's going to take a date. And I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say, I'm going to give the constructor, oh, there's a 0 argument constructor. Well, that's cool. But I'm also going to make a constructor that's visible for testing. And I'm going to call it pretty printer. And it's going to take a date formatter. I'm going to call it, yeah, sure, date formatter. And then I'm going to put it in a field. Date formatter equals date formatter. I'm going to create the field. And sure. And then what I'm going to do is by default, I'm going to have a public pretty printer constructor. It takes 0 arguments. I'm going to call this. I'm going to call basically this constructor down here with a new date formatter object. And how does it format the date? Using GWT. Okay. And so now instead of calling pretty print there, I'm going to call this dot date formatter dot format date. I'm going to return that value. So I've abstracted out how the what code is used to format the date into this date formatter class. Okay, well, so this is neat. So now that I've abstracted this out, I can over here. I can use the other constructor, date formatter, and now I'm going to use a simple date format here. So I'm just going to say new simple date format, and you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I think it is the same date string, so I'm just going to put this into a constant. Date, yeah, I know. Date pattern, date format. I'm going to make it at visible for testing. The at visible for testing annotation basically is a note to anyone who's reading the code saying, hey, listen, the reason this thing isn't a private field is because I want it to, because it's being used for testing. So let's use new simple date format here, and it'll be pretty printer. Oops. No. Pretty printer, yeah, nice. Date format pattern, dot format, date. And I guess, what doesn't it like there? Oh, I need to return. Cool. So now when I run this test, it's not going to use the GWT code anymore, but all the other code will be the same, and poof, it works. So in a lot of respects, it's like those mock objects that we were using. So remember, and maybe you've blocked it all out, because I know it was really kind of weird, but all that Mockito stuff, in that case, we were using something like, oh, you know, I want to call my servlet methods. I want to call the do get and send in. Here's something that mocks out an HTTP request. And here's something that mocks out an HTTP response. It is kind of similar in that I have special methods that are only used for testing, and what I just send in is a different implementation that helps me test. And there's nothing wrong with this. Actually, this is really good because now I've got a unit test. So again, I can test all of my printing logic except for the one thing that's sort of dependent on external things, which is my my date formatting. So now it all works. Okay. So this is how you can write unit tests for your for code like Pretty Printer, which has a little bit of GWT specific stuff. So let's see here. So I added unit test for Pretty Printer. Did that make sense, what I just did there? Abstracting out the actual functionality? Yeah, I use a special interface. So here again, it's like the pretty date, it doesn't care what date formatter it is. All it knows is that it's got, it takes in, I'm going to send this date to the date formatter, and I'm going to return whatever string that is. So, most of the time it's a date formatter that uses the GWT date format. But in this test case, it uses the JDK simple date format because that's what works in the environment. Okay, so I've tested my backend code. I've tested my Pretty Printer, which is client-side code. But what I really want to test is my airline GWT. Wow. So this thing's got like GWT dependencies all over the place, right? It's got like button and stuff like that. So if I were, well, I'll just create one for you, and I'll show you what it does. Let's see here. Actually, some of this stuff, well, no, it probably can't be, we'd have to abstract it out all over the place. Actually, I'm just going to cut to the chase. You can't write a unit test, or a plain old unit test for this. There are two main dependencies on GWT, right? We do things like a GWT create of the airline service. This expects like the airline sync. We have the GWT logger, I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait, no. Oh, no, I guess that'll work. But like all these buttons and stuff, you can't just run this in a plain old unit test. You have to run this in a special kind of unit test called a GWT test case. And I've got one of those that I can show you. But it's an integration test because it does not run quickly. It's got to spin up a whole bunch of environments so you can do GWT things inside the JVM. And it's right here. So actually I'm going to close those two out because I don't think we're going to need them. Okay, so this is a this is an integration test that extends this GWT test case, and GWT test case has all of these like setup and teardown methods that will basically create all of the environment that you need. And yes, I believe it runs essentially a web browser inside your JVM. It's something that will provide all of the DOM APIs and all of the stuff like that that will then let your code essentially run inside that environment. And so here is an example that basically says, hey, that when I click the Show Airline button, it pops up an alert with airline information. It uses and because it's actually running your application, and your application is a UI, and your UI is asynchronous. Remember all that stuff I said about like asynchrony, and like you click, you put up your code, and like you click your button, and then then the event comes in, and you don't know when exactly it's going to come in because you don't know when exactly the button is going to be clicked. And then things might run for various periods of time and stuff. Because of all that asynchrony, your unit tests aren't straight line unit tests where like I start here and I end there. It's more like the following. It's like, okay, I got to do given when then. So like given, okay, I set up my UI and stuff like that. When I do something, and doing something is like clicking a button. Okay, it's like when I click a button, I gotta wait for the then to happen because it might take some time, or rather, I gotta wait for it because when I click that button, the button click returns, and stuff is happening in the background in another thread. So the way I express this is I've written some. This is like I've written some helper methods to hopefully make it a little more clear. So my given is the following. I'm going to create my airline GWT, right? So this is my UI class. It's got all the buttons. It's got all that stuff. I'm going to create one of those. I'm going to use a special alerter. It's called a capturing alerter, and this is what this is going to allow me to do is like get the alert text and then work with it in the test. And I'm going to say, hey, on module load. And so this is the thing that like creates all of the UI and does all of that stuff. So it creates all the UI. And then I'm going to say the following, okay, wait before running. So I think it waits then, it gives it 500 milliseconds for the UI to initialize. And I say, okay, great, click the Show Airline button. And then that, as you may recall, goes off and makes a call of the service, the RPC, the remote procedure call, the RPC service, the airline service. And then it returns the result and then pops up the, and actually it doesn't pop it up in the alerter anymore. So this is going to fail. I got to fix that. But let's run it and just see what happens. So things start up. It takes a little while. Oh, it launched some application called app main. It's doing some stuff. It's waiting. It's taking a long time. And it's probably going to time out because it doesn't pop up an alert anymore. I changed that. Maybe I should change it back. Yep. So, right. Let's make it work. Okay. So let's see here. What is it saying? Calling get airline. Expected. Right. Okay. So then it asks the alerter, hey, what was the message that you were sent? And hey, it should be not null, but guess what? I got something that was null. That is true. So actually, there's a couple of things that we need to do in order to make this work now. So we changed several things in our UI. Let's go back to our UI and let's run it again so we can all remember what we changed. Sorry, you know what? I should have been updating the tests when I updated the code. That's the right way to do it. So I'll reload this. So we do a couple of things now. We say we have to put in the airline name, then you click the button, and when you click the button, the pretty print is printed out there. Okay, so we've changed the functionality. We need to change the test. So it's really clicking Show Airline button displays pretty airline. Okay, so before I click the button. I also need to input some text into the into whatever that text field is. So let's go and look at the airline GWT. Okay, let's move right. Yeah, there you go. That button, so that was a text field, wasn't it? Text box. Oh, airline name, okay. So this thing right now is a variable inside add widgets. This needs to be, and so when I need to do my tests, I need to say in my test, I need to like set the text of that airline in my text. So then this is in my test. Then this thing needs to be a field. So yeah, we'll just call it airline name, and I don't want it to be private anymore. Can it be final? Perhaps. Probably don't want it to be the final. Okay, airline name. And now I say over here in my test, I say UI.airline name, set text, and then I'm going to have a airline name up here. Final string airline name equals my airline. Airline name. Okay, now I'm going to click the button. And you know what? I don't need this capturing alerter anymore. So we're just going to get rid of this. We're going to use the zero argument constructor. And now, instead of saying that the message is not that anymore, now instead I want my text area, which I think I also need to promote to a field now. Nice. And I need to call this so that won't, oops. Now, over here, instead of the alerter.message, I need to say UI dot something pretty, what was it called? Airline pretty text. Airline, oh, I didn't make it public, I bet, or I didn't make it, yep, I didn't make it visible for testing. Add visible for testing. Airline pretty text. Dot get text. And then I'm just going to call this pretty. And I'm going to assert that it contains, I'm going to assert that it contains airline name. Now let's try it, see if it works any better. I'm in pins and needles here. I don't know if it's going to work. Hey, it worked. 10 seconds. Oh my God, that's a slow test. But it worked, right? You're able to write code. Or, I mean, think about what we just did here, right? All the complex logic here, all the calling of the server, it's all there. It's all there in your test. Now, granted, it took 10 seconds, which I don't know, maybe it's certainly faster than having to like reload your page and click and everything like that. But I guess the bottom line is that you can do this, which is pretty powerful, right? So you can have those automated tests for your functionality. It's just that they're a lot slower than plain old unit tests. Now, I'm not going to go into it here, and I guess I don't have a screencast for it, but if you're really interested in it, I think I have some slides in the Advanced GWT that talk about a design pattern called Model View Presenter that allows you to, this is for your UI code, your front end code, that allows you to put all of the GWT dependent stuff like on the periphery of your system, put all of your logic in code, which is plain old Java code, so no GWT dependency. So you can use unit tests to test all of the business logic of your program, including like the values that you're setting in the UI. You just don't actually have the UI stuff that's there. And so then basically, 85% of your code is testable with unit tests, which is awesome. And then that last 15%, then you can use something like an integration test. So that was how to test your UI. Does that make sense? Right? It's just Java, and you're doing things like referencing the fields. So, okay, so now let's say, okay, add updated integration tests for new UI functionality. I also have some other tests here, which is, I don't even know if they work or not. Let's try to run them. I guess we've got a few seconds. So there's like 4 of them. But I mean, this is really cool that you can use, you know, the JUnit framework. Oh, the other one's really faster because there's a lot of setup time for the first one. You can use, you know, the JUnit code that you're used to then, you know, test your UI. And so then, you know, hopefully, you know, you're seeing how you could write an integration test for your own code, where you sort of specify all of the you know, I don't know, airline. Sorry, all the flight field values, and then you can actually have it go to your server. You can even test pretty, you know, and all that good stuff. Okay. There's one other flavor of integration tests, and this is for your service itself. I don't know how valuable this really is, but what the heck? So yeah. So the service itself is just a Java servlet at the end of the day, right? And we saw, you know, last time, the time before last, or was it only last time? We saw whenever we went through like all of the detailed testing of Project 4 that you can write a test for a servlet. And there's this library called GWT Sync Proxy, which is not written by the GWT guys, but it's somebody else who wrote it. And what it allows you to do is write an integration test for your service and still like program to the interface. So it uses a bunch of neat Java logic to let you make remote calls to your service using the Java API. So I'm gonna rename this test here, which is creating airline, right? Because that's airline service. It's called Get Airline. Okay, I'll call it getting airline with name returns airline of that name, which is the same test that we used in the unit test, right, when it was just in VM. But now we're running it in an environment where it's actually running. Web URL. Okay, on 8080. Okay. These, I don't know if it's that interesting or not. I think it's just kind of cool that it can be done. And we're going to call this airline name, and that the airline name is then that, and then it has one flight. Sure. This one, I don't think we can run. Well, we could run it from the browser if the service was running on port 8080. And so you do that. Let's do a Maven clean, and then if we do a Maven Jetty run war. I think that'll launch it on port 8080. So this is running the application in the GWT application in web mode instead of dev mode, where it actually creates it compiles all the JavaScript. It doesn't have like the fancy UI there that pops. Doesn't have the application that pops up. Instead, it just creates a WAR file and starts it with Jetty. Nothing terribly magical there, but it does take a little while to compile everything. Okay, so it's running, and let's see here. It's running on port 8080. So let's just hit it real quick. So now we hit localhost 8080 airline. Okay, so it's running on port 8080. And so now we're going to run our test, and let's just see what happens. Okay, wow, it worked. That's cool. So it basically lets you call the airline service from your from a Java unit test. Kind of neat. So those are the 3 ways that you can test your code in GWT. You can write plain old Java unit tests, as long as your code doesn't use anything special in GWT like a datetime format or a button. Okay. You can also write a GWT test case, which is which starts up like the whole GWT application, front end and back end, and then lets you interact with it through through a Java API. Through a Java API. And so that's cool for doing like integration tests, which are end-to-end things. And then there's also the sync proxy test, which allows you to test your service. I don't know how useful it is, but it can be done. So let's see here. Updated sync proxy test for new application behavior, new service behavior. Anything else you want to talk about with regards to testing? Did that make sense? That's something you think you'd apply? Was good use of whatever it was, half an hour. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Can you do debugging and stepping through?
Yes, that's where I was going to go next. So, do the integration tests. Okay, client-side debugging. Now, last time we saw that you can attach to the server side. Actually, I've already got a breakpoint. Let's see here. I think it was called a GWT debug. Oh, it's not running on 8000. That is true. Because I'm not, but I thought I was running on, I'm probably not running on that port. Sorry. So I think what you need to do is you need to run Maven, actually let's do Maven clean again. Yeah, the Maven VM is, actually, unset Maven ops. Okay, so now if I say Maven GWT debug, that will start up the the back end on port 8000, and then you can attach, and away it goes. It starts up and everything. So now if I'm there in my application, this is in the wrong. I think that's the right. Yeah, I do want to try again. Oh. Okay. I might need to launch again. Okay. Whatever. Okay, so now if I say my airline and I go and click this, it stops in the debugger on the server side. And so now I can, I can debug in, I can step in and I can see, oh yeah, flight, sweet stuff. Okay, all the stuff I'm used to. I can continue on, and now I get myself on the client side. Okay, that's great, super cool. But I really want to. But my server side stuff is pretty small. Most of the code that you'll be writing is on the client side, and things can go wrong. And so even though you can have nice unit tests and everything like that, sometimes you need to debug. The way it used to be is that you would actually when you ran in dev mode, all sorts of magic would take place so that you could debug it in IntelliJ, because actually there was Java running in the background. And that was cool and all, but it was slow and it was heavy. And it's not the way that people debug JavaScript applications, right? You debug in the browser, and the browser debugging tools have come so far, and just the last 5 years, it's so much better than it used to be. And so we can do the way you do it today in GWT is that you that you debug using the browser's tools. So in Chrome, and there's also something in Firefox, and I have no idea what you do in Internet Explorer. You say more tools, and these things called developer tools. And so then this gives you this little source. This gives you this console down here. Wow, 10,000 lines of JavaScript. That's interesting. And you can you look at stuff like here's the JavaScript console. Oh, calling get airline. Well, that's interesting. Calling get air. Oops, not flight. I want. Here, we'll close that. Close this. We'll close this. I don't need all this test code anymore. What we need is airline GWT. There it is, and we'll. I wish I could move that. Move to opposite group. There we go. So what I'm doing here is I looked at my JavaScript console in my browser. And there was this info here, a date, a timestamp said airline, and then info calling get airline, and that's actually something that get airline. That's something that gets logged. So if you want to have, if you're used to like having logging output, yep, you can do that in GWT using a logger. So it supports that. That's neat. But that's not the best way to debug. The best way to debug is as follows. So somewhere here, is it up here? No, it is here. Source maps airline. So this is super cool. So GWT uses this this thing in the browser called source maps that basically will map the generated JavaScript off to your Java source code. So you only get this maybe you only get it in debug mode. I don't know if you get it in run or not. If you say GWT run it, you definitely don't get it when it's compiled all the way using like a Jetty run war or something. But here, you double click on this, and you can, those browser breakpoints are no longer valid. But here you've got your source code, and you can set breakpoints. So for instance, let's show. Oops. No, not 104. I want to set it at 100. Oh, maybe I can't. So sometimes it's a little finicky in terms of which lines exactly. So let's give it a try. Say my airline. So here it does on the clients. Here it does on the server side. That's sweet. In the browser, it did not catch it. So okay. Let's see here. Find show airline. Show airline. Okay. So now we'll set a breakpoint there. We'll try this again. There it is. Great. So now I'm here in the JavaScript debugger, and so now this is just plain old JavaScript debugger in Chrome. Other than the fact that it's got these fancy source maps, it's it's whatever you're used to. And so now you can step into the step into or step over the function. So we get oops, no, what? Wow, that was messed up. Huh. Maybe I should have added it to the iTunes spoken track. Okay, and so like now it's I didn't want to step into. I want to step out of. I don't need to debug that. I can step over. There you go. Oh, and now it's can I set the line there? Yeah. See if that works. Now I'm just going to say, okay, so I'm about to call the airline service. So this is now where it's going to call on the server. So I'm just going to keep resuming it here. Goes over to the server. This is great. I'll just resume it here because I'm not really debugging into stuff. And now I go back here, and oh look, now I've got my onSuccess method called. And now I will I'll dive into my pretty print airline. What? Oh. Yeah. Anyway, so this is how you can debug on the client side. And then, actually, let's make this a little smaller here. Oh, it's not going to show anything because it's going to have the same text. Anyway. Oh, I guess I might have changed the time. I don't know. So anyway, that's what you need to do. Have you guys ever debugged anything in the browser before? Yeah, maybe a couple people have. Done a little bit of JavaScript and stuff. The tools have come a long way. It's not as good as IntelliJ. Unfortunately, it doesn't have things like browse to method declaration and things like that. So you have to do a bunch of searching. So it's not ideal. But again, this is debugging, right? It ought to be rare, right? And now that you've seen how to write unit tests, you could do this test driven and probably get a lot of the way there. Actually, the way I don't write a lot of GWT code so much, but like I don't know, a couple weekends ago I was writing an application for the graders to help them grade, and it had didn't have a web UI. It had a thing called Swing, which is a desktop application in Java, and it was really cool. The way I was writing it was I was essentially doing a test driven. And what I was able to do is write unit tests for like all of the functionality, and like then the only thing I actually needed to test in the UI was that. I basically got all the functionality working. It gave me a tremendous amount of confidence so that when I did test the UI, I sort of did the happy path. I was like, yeah, this is good enough, and then moved on. I found it to be a very rapid way to put together an application, not because I could just sort of get everything working in the test with it and poke at it. It's like I could get everything working and demonstrate that it works, and then all I had to do was just hook things up to the UI, and away they went. So that's how you test. Sorry, this is how you debug. Cool? Okay. I've been talking for a while, but how about we just plow through UI binder and then go home? Sound good? Okay. Yeah. Okay. UI binder. So where's the GWT? So in our entry point, in our sort of main UI class, we do all sorts of stuff. We have our button fields. We have we declare all of our UI widgets as fields, and we initialize them in let's see here. Where do we initialize that? Oh. Right. There's not a space there. There should be. We initialize them here, and we set all the click handlers, and we perform all of the logic, and we do all of the layout. And the layout is pretty simple, right? It's a bunch of widgets stacked on top of each other. If you GWT layouts, if you go and you look at all of this stuff, you can see that there are different kinds of panels and stuff. You can have like scroll panels and dialog boxes and everything like that. And these can all be created with Java. And it's very verbose. And it's not the way any web developer is used to working, right? Web developers write HTML. They take advantage of HTML to do, and the markup in HTML to express all of this stuff, right? Because you have elements nested inside other elements, and you apply styles to them, et cetera, et cetera. So for someone like is used to writing Java UIs, this makes a lot of sense. For someone who's used to writing web UIs, they scratch their head and say, what is this? This is like, this is a bunch of Java stuff. I'm used to laying out something that looks a little better. So they, in GWT 2.0, they introduced, let's see here. They introduced something called UI binder. And I don't want to go into too much detail about it because there's quite a lot here. But it allows you to do the following. It allows you to instead of representing your layout in all these Java objects, you lay them out, you represent them in an XML file. And the XML file looks a lot like HTML. So here, yes, it begins with a UI binder declaration, but you can have like an HTML div in there. And so you can have HTML in there to do your layout, to do your styling, and that'll give you something that looks really good when it's loaded. However, none of the widgets are tied into your logic and are tied into your Java code. So what UI binder does, it allows you to put like special attributes on fields, on markup on the HTML elements that say, hey, this corresponds to a field in a Java class called namespan. And so down here, it's a span element, which is a GWT thing, and you annotate it with UI field. And then there's this, GWT does this magic thing to basically bind the two things together. So what you can do is you can declare the way your UI looks visually in XML, and so you can use HTML tags and things like that. And then when it comes to actually hooking up to your Java code while your logic is, then you use the UI annotation, and you have to use this funny interface thing right here. To bind everything together. So I don't have an example readily at hand for the airline GWT. I do have an example here over in this. I have division binder. No, division. One of these things. Oh, I think this is. Oh, that's MVP. That's neat. Okay, like divisionview.xml. Okay, so let me, that's the best way for me to do this. this. Okay, I will load this GWT application so you guys can see it. GWT parent, GWT, Maven, GWT run. So if you guys watch the screencast all about the GWT lecture, you'll see this application. Yeah, it's examples.html. Takes a little while for it to compile. So here's all of this cool stuff. Let's see here. Client server, division service. Okay, so I have here a very simple example of a UI that takes a divisor and a dividend and returns its quotient from calling it on the server. And so I have it implemented sort of the same here. If you look at the implementation of this, it looks a lot like the airline GWT in that you declare, you create all of your buttons. You instantiate all of your UI widgets there in the Java code. You lay them out in the Java code, and then they also handle the events in the Java code. There's the same example is in this model view presenter, and here this uses UI binder to do its thing. So there's a class called division view, which interesting uses UI binder. So let's first look at the UI XML. Okay, so I've got all sorts of good stuff here. I've got some style, which you probably don't need. But now I've got, okay, so I lay it out using a horizontal panel. So there's a layout here that lays out horizontally. And inside there's a cell in that panel, and it's aligned to the middle. And it's a text box. And the name of the text box is dividend. Oh, and by the way, you can configure things with the text box, such as visible length. So you can do this in the XML file instead of doing it in your Java code. And then I've got a cell that contains a label, which is just the slash. What? Huh? I don't. So it's interesting. This I put a label here. I probably don't need to do that. I could just have like a span or something, because I don't have a UI field. It's not something that I reference in my UI. It's just something that's static. Whatever. I've got a text box, a button, which is the equals. And then I put that in a field called equals. So actually, let's then open the division view in move right over here. Yeah, that kind of sucks. There we go. So I've got a text box whose field is called dividend, and so I've got a dividend field in my class that's annotated with UI field, and it's a type text box. So when all this stuff is like married together, this text box here from the UI gets populated into this field. Similarly for the divisor, the equals button, and then the the quotient text field. Oh yeah, and it's read-only true. And so the nice thing is that all this like read-only and visible length and stuff, that gets configured in the XML file. You don't need to worry about that in your Java file. All you need to worry about is the logic. So wait, set. Oh yeah. So basically, yeah. I'm not okay. So that's how you put the two together. I'm going to try to get this working in the GWT example. Bear with me because there'll be a lot of cut and paste and some trial and error. But I think we'll see that we're able to take out a lot of boilerplate stuff from the GWT. So let's see here. First of all, I guess I need to figure out what directory this goes in. Okay, it's right next to the Java code. That's pretty cool. Okay, so it's right next to the Java code. So I'll create a new file here in my, I'll call it airline GWT XML. What's it called? Shoot. UI.xml. New file, airline GWT.UI.xml. Okay, since I don't know what I'm going to doing, I'm just going to cut and paste stuff. And you can feel free to do the same if you want to experiment with this. Okay, I don't need the style yet. Actually, I don't need that style at all. It would be kind of neat. UI binder class not found. That is true. That's cool. Right. Let's see here. Import that. Import that. Okay. So I want this to go away. But I guess we need to find it. Okay, so we got all of this stuff. So GWT UI XML, airline GWT. Now looking at this thing over here, there's this kind of funny boilerplate. You need like, oh yeah, this weirdo interface. Okay. Binder doesn't have corresponding. Well, it ought to. Oh wait. Oh, not division. Okay, horizontal panel. So okay, it won't be a horizontal panel, but we want. Oh wait, what is that view? What is division view? Okay, it is that class right there. So then we want this to be airline GWT. Hey, it all worked. And is it complaining about this now? You should complain about other things, like this field doesn't exist. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Whew. Okay, so IntelliJ is a little bit happier. Let's do the following. Okay, so now instead of a horizontal panel, let's have a vertical panel. Spacing 2, great. Cell, vertical alignment equals align middle. I think we want horizontal alignment now, align middle. We'll just change all this stuff. Right, because we're basically going for, so the division example was horizontal. This thing is going to be vertical. So I think, yeah, horizontal. What?
Layout is so much fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's easier. I think it's way easier to do it this way than to do it in Java, right? Okay, so then let's get that. Let's get airline GWT side by side, so we can go and we can get all this stuff squared away. Oops. Why does it do that? Show me the thing I just was at. Okay. Okay, and what do we need for? Okay, so we need a button first of all. So here we'll start over again. Okay, so we're going to call it button, and let's see here, name. Okay, so let's go figure out where this guy is initialized. So now instead of initializing in Java code, we're going to say button, and the text of the button is going to be show airline to the class on Wednesday. Okay. And we're not going to create it there anymore. And then the UI field is going to be show airline button. Oops, doesn't look like there. Oh, it's not annotated with UI field, so annotate it with UI field. And we're just going to try that much for right now. Oh, actually, wait, or not. No, I think we kind of need to go all in on this one. So, okay, here's what we're going to do just for a demonstration. We're going to do that, and then we're not going to add anything to the panel anymore. I just want to see what happens. Actually, all that panel stuff, actually, we're just not going to add widgets. All of that add widget stuff is going to be changed very differently. Okay, so I don't want any of this stuff anymore. Oh, actually, wait a second. I don't want any of this, but yet I need to do something. I bet I need to do something with... Yes, I need to say, when I create, I say add. I need this thing right here. I need to add to this view, create and bind UI, whatever this thing does. This is magic, right? So here in the setup UI, so instead of all of this, which is how I added stuff before, I'm just going to say this. Oh, what's binder? There's no add? Oh, wait a second. What does this thing extend? No? Okay. Where do I create a binder? Oh, oh, really? Really? Okay, I think I just say new binder. Oops. Root. Hello world. You create. Oh, okay, right. Sorry, you just need this piece of magic right here. Oh, interesting. So wait, what do I? Yeah. So my division example might not be the best for that. So let's see here. Right. Okay. Sorry. So we need something like this in our code. And then I need that. And this is just binder. Again, calling this magical GWT Create. Oh, this needs to be a horizontal. So this needs to be a vertical panel now. And then here in root. Okay, that's neat. Huh, get element root. I don't quite understand that. Okay, I'm going to do that add. Oh, no, maybe I won't. No, I won't. Okay, so I'm just going to copy whatever this does here. Div element, though, but I don't think that's what I want. Because I've got the div right here. HTML. So this thing extends composite. And then init widget. Okay, yeah, I kind of like this right here. So okay, I'll have it extend composite. And then I'll say init widget with that. Yeah. Okay. Clear as mud, everybody? This is why honestly, this is why I don't. Oops, what doesn't it like? Yeah, right. This is like getting the magic to work, to hook up. Init widget UI binder create and bind UI. This.
That second magic declaration.
Sorry, what?
The second magic declaration up right there.
Right here?
That's
Yeah.
where you would find Did you do that?
Yeah, I did. So init widget sets list box. UI binder. So it's complaining that create and bind UI returns an object. What doesn't it like? And a widget cannot be applied to create. Oh, because it's not a composite. It's not a composite of something. Create and bind UI. What does this thing take? Just an object and returns an object. There's a warning there. What is the warning? Right, raw type of UI binder. UI binder of blah blah blah. Oh, that's why. Okay. So, wait a second. That's why. It should. Oh. UI binder does not have its corresponding UI file. Oh, it was heavy before. Why doesn't it like that now? My UI binder extends UI binder. Okay, no wait. So, huh? So like, now it's all happy, but then oh, I think I know why. No? UI binder. Create. So it should. Huh. This should return what? This should return the thing on the right, which is the vertical panel. I don't know. And then this casts it to a vertical panel. Now people are happy, but I don't know why that's really weird. Okay. Okay, so I've done this much. Let's see if this works at all. Let's see here. I wonder if I can just refresh. Actually, I'm not running it. Am I? Am I running this in dev mode? Yeah, I am. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see where I want this one. Oh, I'm running the wrong thing in dev mode, though. I want to run this one. Oh, it'll be so impressive when it works. It'll be totally worth you sitting around watching, waiting for this. Let me tell you. This will be so awesome. Watch it blow up. Doesn't it like... Well, no kidding. Okay, error. You must use a subtype of UI binder in GWT Create. I thought I did. And where's my GWT? Did I not do the GWT Create? GWT Create. No, I did. Wow, why doesn't it like that? It says it's a subclass of UI binder. Possible results for UI binder. Rebinding that. Invoking generator. You must use a subtype of UI binder. And I thought I did. Interface binder extends UI binder. Create binder. Failed to resolve via deferred binding. For the following types, generated source was never committed. You forgot to call commit. I don't know. Didn't know I was supposed to. Damn it! Anything else that looks like the same thing? Huh. Widget my class. I thought I had. Widget my class. So I must be missing something here. UI binder. Oh, wait, no. It should be binder. And then this should be binder. That's what I was complaining about. And then this is, yes, okay, good. Okay, so that's unnecessary. Woo! 2 letters. Still failed. But with a different, okay, cannot parse, oh, good. Align middle. Okay, horizontal alignment, did I spell it wrong? Maybe there is no align middle. Maybe it's align center or something?
It's center.
Oh, nice, okay.
Middle is for vertical.
Oh, wait, did I comment out the wrong things before? No. Sorry, what was that?
So middle is for vertical alignment.
Okay, and so I think it's center? And I thought I commented out all of these before, but maybe I didn't. Okay, so let's try that. I have no idea. Hey, so there's nothing. Okay. Huh. Well, it didn't blow up, but it certainly didn't do what I thought it would. What doesn't it like? Should be a button here. What am I missing? It might be the init widget with that. Huh. Oh. Let's see here. It does call setup UI on module load. Setup UI init widget. UI binder create and bind UI that. And then, oh, but wait, what if I just did add instead? What doesn't it like? Can't resolve add. Okay, fine. We'll add you to the root panel. Try that. Yay! Okay. Got everything hooked up. And look, I could. So I was. So what did this buy me? Now, if we go and look at what changed in my airline, GWT. Okay, boilerplate UI field. The most. Oops, let's just go to the next change. Now I don't have to declare the. I don't have the new button there. I do that in the. I do that in the XML file. So now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of this, for the rest of the widgets there, just so we can see. Actually, well, I'm just going to do the stuff that we need for the airline. I'm not going to do all the other buttons right now. It's not terribly important. But anyway, so we got the button there, but above the button there was. Let's see here. Above the button, there was a the text area, so the text box. Text box. Oops. Rich text area. No. Just do all that. Text box. There we go. And the UI field that's going to be airline name. And this thing is not annotated with UI field. It now will be. Come on. Oopsie. Return. Good. That's okay. And then the text box, I don't need this new text box anymore because it'll be injected. And shouldn't be final anymore. Oops. Okay. Cool. Oh, you know what? This will probably totally break those integration tests. Or maybe not. I don't know. We should find out. Okay, so we need airline name, and now we also need the text field, the airline pretty stuff. So after the button, there'll be another one. This will be a text area, not rich text area, it's text area. And it has nothing initially. Then this is airline pretty text. Add the UI annotation, get rid of the final, and get rid of the initialization here because it's not initialized here, it's initialized in the text file. Okay, so now let's reload it. Yay! Oh, we didn't want those aligned center. That looks dumb. Align left. I don't know. Yay! But isn't that easier, right? You sort of change one thing in the XML file. So having to change it.
It's also nice because you can have one person working on UI and all the other persons working on code. Or if you change your UI, it's not going to break your code.
Yes. So right, the whole thing is that the visual layout is separated from the logic, and that's really the right way to do things. Now, I didn't start out with this because I think it's kind of complex, but again, so is trying to do all the layout inside your Java code. Okay, now is anything hooked up? No, nothing's hooked up yet. And that's okay. Nothing is hooked up yet. Oh yeah, and by the that's way too small, right? We want to have a bigger thing. So actually, what did this used to be? This used to be, just a text area? Do we set the size someplace? Oh yeah, there we go. Character width 80, lines visible 10. So here we'll say character width 80, lines visible, oh, sorry, visible lines, 10. Yay! Okay, now it's bigger. Okay. So this add widgets method isn't called anymore. And that's okay because we're not adding widgets anymore. But what we do need is like a register event handlers. So basically, your airline GWT, instead of like doing all of this work to create the widgets and lay them out and hook up the event handlers, you rely on the UI binder to basically say, hey, take all of this all this markup over here in the UI XML file and inject it into all of these fields, and now. So instead of add widgets, this is going to be, say, add event handlers. And I don't need a vertical panel anymore. And so then all this stuff goes away. And so I just put that on this. I'm just going to get rid of all this all this stuff here. Yeah, that's all I need to do. Right, what was this? That was a text block down at the bottom. We don't need any of that stuff anymore. And I'm not going to need any of these things because I just got rid of all their buttons. Just trying to clean things up. Show airline I do need. And pretty print I do need. So I add it, and now I'm going to call, instead of add widgets, I'm going to say add event handlers. Don't need this code anymore. What are some of my warnings? Oh, that thing, it's not, I don't know. Yeah, these are all cool warnings, okay. And so now I reload, I give it a name, I show the airline, poof, it all works. So all that logic was there. So I think you guys, I've already said, oh, this is really neat. So what this allows me to do is declare all my visual stuff over here in an XML file, and so I can sort of take all that out of the way. My Java code doesn't need to know, how many characters are in this. It just needs to know that, listen, I've got, actually, so get rid of all of this stuff. Oh, and actually, so sorry, one more thing. So here in like my vertical panel, I can put, a div, which is, this is my airline GWT application. Oops, it doesn't look like. Oh, so a widget or a cell found a div. Okay. Oh, right, because it's inside the vertical panel. Can I put it up here? I don't think so. Oh, wait. Nope. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay, so I got to put it inside there, and that's all right. I can just put it inside a cell of my vertical panel. And I can just say it's a label. Actually, oh, maybe I can put it in here. Let's put my div in here. This is my airline GWT. Does that work? Oops, that's the log. Nope. Oh, it doesn't. Okay, so I got to do it. The rebind results couldn't be found. Oh, probably. Okay, so okay, fine. Put a G label in there. And you could style it however. Yay. So I put it here, and I don't know, you could, yeah, you can apply styles to it. That's way beyond what I want to talk about tonight. Anyway, so it allows you to sort of iterate on your interface using markup very quickly, and then your Java code just focuses on what Java code is good at, which is logic, which is handling things like events, UI events, and doing the right thing. And And so then you'd be able to get rid of quite a bit of Java code, and especially if we had done more complex layout, all that would have been in Java code, and all that would have been a lot more expensive. So that was UI Binder. Any questions about that? If you're so enthused, go ahead and try to do what I've done here. Hey, if you're already feeling pretty comfortable with GWT, if you like the way your project looks and want to spend a little while playing with it, I'd say go for it. Don't start here though, right? This is I don't know. You can look at the code, and so that's cool. But yeah, I recommend that you focus on like I said. I think I said this on the community. It's like, get your code working first. This is just good, general practice, right? Get your code working. So, write tests and make sure you got your logic right. Then make it look pretty, and then make your UI look pretty. Because ultimately, you'll be graded much more on your functionality than you will on how pretty it looks. So, yeah.
Are we graded at all on how pretty it looks?
If I can't use it, you're going to lose points. I'm sorry, right? Come on, right? That's probably more of an indication of either like you thought you were being clever and decided to come up with a whole new UI paradigm where you're like drag and drop, letters from right? Don't do that. Just like anything else, it's like don't put too much work on the graders. I think I'm going to grade this one because I like seeing what you guys did. So there are like 60 of you. Yeah, don't try to be clever. Yeah.
Are you gonna push this code up to the GitHub?
Right now. Yep. Refactored the GWT UI to use UI Binder. Oh, UI Binder. Fucking my finger. Okay. Awesome. So that's it. And this will be like the last lecture, whatever it is that we do here. Next week will be the final exam. Have a good week, everybody. If you find yourself like struggling with GWT stuff, please speak up, and because oftentimes there's just like a couple of things that need to get worked out, and then you'll be able to get through the log jam. And I know it's all your classes are finishing up, so you'll have less demands on your time. So please use your time wisely. Have a great week, everybody. Stay cool. I will see you next time.